Here on the east side of Vancouver Island on Canada's west coast, some of the world's best oysters are cultivated using aquaculture techniques centuries old. These incredibly fresh Pacific Beach oysters are packed and shipped around the world within hours of harvest. Fresh Pacific Beach oysters, sautéed with shallots and a little bit of rosemary. So today we're going to start off with our shallot, a French shallot. I'm just going to quickly turn it into a fine dice. Just ever so quickly cut it down. You need about one shallot in order to make this work. You don't need that much. Now, to start with, we want to get our pan good and hot. And to go back to the old chef saying, a hot pan, cold oil, foods don't stick. It's true, but it's really important with oysters, especially because they're incredibly juicy. You can see that the juice is just pouring right out of them. Now that's going to become the basis of our sauce later, but in order for us to get sort of a crispy caramelized edge to them, we're going to have a fairly hot pan to start with. Now, I like to mix a little bit of oils. It adds a little bit of depth of flavor. A little bit of grapeseed oil here for heat. Grapeseed oil has a very high burning temperature, and so you can heat it up quite a bit without actually worrying about burning. A little bit of sesame oil, just a little bit for flavor. And I always like to cook with a little bit of butter. We don't need too much here. Again, it's only for flavor. Now the butter adds a little bit of that sort of more of a classical taste to it, and it gives it a little bit of the brownness in the sauce. Now you can see it's starting to sizzle nicely. Now our oysters, we'll bring them over here. And we want to put a little bit of salt on them. Not too much, because of course they've got the natural saltiness from the sea. And we'll take them one at a time and put them down. Now once we get these guys going, we don't want to move them around too much because we want them to develop a nice caramelization. And as you can see, it's quite hot, and that's what we want. We want the oysters to cook all the way through. Raw oysters are fine in a restaurant that have been properly tested, but at home you definitely want to cook your oysters thoroughly. Now, my wife hates pepper, but a little bit of pepper always helps just give a little bit of a lift to food. In the olden days, it was to disguise rotten meat. Okay, our oysters are almost there. I've reserved a little bit of the oyster liquid from, or liqueur as they would call it. And there we go. You don't want to rush the oysters. You want them to be well cooked, at least on the first side, because once you turn them over, we're going to add the rest of our ingredients, and that is going to take away from the oyster's ability to brown. So whatever browning action you're going to get right here, right now. Oh, perfect. Now I've still got this on quite a high heat here. Now at this point, we want to toss in our shallots. At this point too, I'm going to put in a little bit of my rosemary. And I'm not putting in too much, just a little bit. Some of our sausage. And a little bit of our ginger. And I've only put a pinch of each of these ingredients in there. It's important because actually we're doing a very small dish. Only probably one or maybe two people are going to be eating this, so we don't need to overwhelm with a whole lot of extra flavor. And then we're going to add our liqueur back in there just to give some. That would be the fire alarm. Okay, what I'm essentially just doing now is making sure that the ingredients I've just added in are cooking, softening the shallots a little bit, breaking down the fibers of the ginger and the sausage. Now, we will finish this off with a little bit of cream. Now just finish it off. This is going to form the basis of my sauce. And essentially what we're looking to do is to caramelize our cream down into a nice sauce. And I think that pretty well brings together our oysters. Okay, we're going to turn off our heat, let that just settle down a bit. I'm going to bring our plate in forward here. A little bit of greens. We don't want too many here. We're not trying to overwhelm our audience. Just build up a little bit of background color. Our oysters here. I'm going to put each one of these delectable morsels. Absolutely delicious. You can see the color there. We have our sauce here. Just radiating off the plate. And I'm just going to quickly finish it up here with a splash of lime juice just to bring those flavors back to life. And a scallion here, just for a little bit of color. We have tomatoes. Final garnish. We have our dish. Et voila! Fresh Pacific beach oysters sauteed in shallots and rosemary and finished off with a delectable cream sauce.